Squishies, welcome back to another vlog. This is Dirty Pair OVA 4. Something about kids. I continue to struggle with Dirty Pair titles. This was an odd one. This was a very dark premise. I mean, it was a silly premise on the surface, but dark a millimeter below that surface. And they approached it with essentially no humor. Kei and Yuri were just deadly serious through the whole thing. So was pretty much everyone except the children. It's such a strange concept. And honestly kind of astounding that the children didn't kill anyone when they were spraying machine gun fire at them. You've really got to wonder what's going on with these kids. They seem not to entirely understand that what they're doing isn't a game, but at the same time, like, most kids are actually pretty decent at distinguishing fantasy from reality if you ask them the questions right. Certainly, these kids know the difference between a toy gun and a real gun, and they know that you can threaten someone with a real gun. That ought to be enough for them to understand that taking over a military base is a pretty serious thing to do. There also doesn't seem to be any motivation for it. The one kid thinks it'll be fun, and the others just kind of go along with it. There's some really messed up stuff going on with these kids, and we never really examine any of it. I don't think we ever even see their parents. The politicians that supposedly are the reason the kids were able to do all of this. And like at the core of it is this superweapon that's utterly absurd. The dimensional vibration cannon, I think it was called, and it can like destroy the entire planet and probably wipe out humanity if it's fired once. My immediate knee-jerk reaction was, why would anyone build that? That's, you know, what's the point of a gun that blows up the person who uses it? There's a reason we don't build weapons like that, you know? Bombs that have a blast radius bigger than the distance you can throw them don't exist. At least not bombs that are designed to be thrown, I should say, and have a blast radius bigger than the distance you can throw them. Like, there's a general assumption in weapons design that if properly used, the weapon should not kill the person using it. Because why would you ever use it then? But then I was like, well, but this is the 80s, this is the height of the Cold War, this is the height of mutually assured destruction. They have this weapon because they can hold the rest of the galaxy hostage with it. They can get diplomatic concessions and force the W3A to do things and all that stuff because they are sitting on the trigger for a weapon that can wipe out humanity. It doesn't matter that they would be insane to use it. All that matters is that you believe they're insane enough to use it. And that's exactly what the kids are. And that's where I realized that what we're really looking at here is allegory. These kids aren't kids. These kids are a representation of the absolute absurd incomprehension of the real costs of war that happens at the upper echelons of politics and warfare that are the reason we continue to have wars despite possessing these terrifying weapons. And I mean, it's worth remembering the Japanese are the only people to have ever had these weapons used on them. And the generation making anime in the 80s were the generation that grew up in the immediate aftermath of that. Not the generation that experienced it, but the generation that experienced the aftermath of it. The boomers, the equivalent of the American boomers. So that's, I think, a big impact on what's going on in this episode. And unfortunately, that's how war works. To an extent, it's how it's always worked, and it's especially how it works in the present day, where the harm and suffering done is at such a remove from the people making the decisions that they don't feel it. That's one of the problems with modern war. A general can issue an order that causes untold devastation 1,000 miles away. But the general doesn't witness any of that firsthand. They don't pull the trigger. They don't have contact with the people who are being slaughtered. So they don't care. They don't experience the trauma of either the people the soldiers are attacking or the soldiers themselves. And so they continue issuing orders based on a view of the war that reduces it to essentially a game. Because that's what a game is a competition stripped of real stakes. And I know sometimes games have stakes added back in via, gambling or prizes or that kind of thing. But at the core, a game, and I talked about this on the Doki Doki Literature Club video, the last one. At its core, what a game is a conflict, a competition, in which it doesn't actually matter what happens. Only the rules matter. And that's what war becomes. And increasingly it's that, as war becomes more automated, it becomes that for the soldiers as well as the commanders. And as humans get more and more distant from it, it becomes easier and easier to just casually do horrific things. To treat it like a game, the way these kids are. To casually or accidentally trigger the end of the frickin' world. That's what I think is really going on in this episode, and I gotta respect that. I kind of gotta salute that for being done in an action comedy anime in 1980, whatever. Might be 1990 by now, I'm not sure. The timeline on which Dirty Pairs released is a little fuzzy for me. Of course, the downside is that the result is an episode with essentially no humor. Because the whole focus of it is don't treat this as a game, treat this as something that matters. Which is a little sad because some of the best episodes of Dirty Pair are when they manage to successfully juxtapose good humor with something a little meatier. And the second best episodes are the ones where there's no meat and it's just a romp. This is meatier than most episodes, but it's not that fun. Ironically, given the focus on children. Still, it is a good episode. The show, the OVAs continue to be decent. There haven't been any highs in them that are as high as the best episodes of the show, but there also hasn't hasn't been anything remotely as bad as the worst episodes. So they keep going along, and hopefully we'll get something stronger at some point. Hopefully we won't get anything weaker. Anyway, I think that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my Patreon for early access to vlogs, essays, let's plays, and more. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!